The freighter Starlight Breeze was a small old ship. It moved slowly through the empty space near the border. This area was called the Neutral Zone. It was a place where no government had full control. The ship was not special. It carried machine parts and boxes of food. It was going to a small human research station. The station was very far from Earth. Inside the ship, 2 people were working. Kim Jun sat at a computer screen. Lines of numbers and code moved across it. His job was to look at data. He made sure the ship's supplies were used in the best way. He was a data analyst. He was a quiet man. He did not like to talk much. He preferred the company of numbers. They made sense to him. They were predictable. Across the room, Lee Hana was talking on the comm system. She was the logistics coordinator. She was in charge of the physical boxes and supplies. She made sure things were loaded and unloaded correctly. She was friendly and full of energy. June thought she was the most amazing person he had ever met. He often watched her work. He liked the way she solved problems, but he was too shy to ever tell her. The delivery schedule for the research station is very tight, Hana said, talking to someone on the other end of the comms. If we are late, they will run out of coffee. And you do not want scientists without their coffee. She laughed. It was a nice sound. June smiled a little to himself and looked back at his screen. He was working on a small personal project. The ship's system for making the crew's food was not very good. It often made too much of one thing and not enough of another. June was writing a new program for it. He was making the system smarter. He thought he could reduce food waste by 7%. It was not a big thing, but it was a puzzle. And June liked puzzles. The comm was broken by a loud, sharp beep. A red light began to flash on the main control panel. "What is that?" Hana asked. She turned from her comm station. Her smile was gone. June's fingers flew across his keyboard. His screen changed. It now showed the ship's sensor readings. His heart started to beat very fast. "A large ship," he said. His voice was quiet. "It just came out of a warp speed jump. Very close to us. Is it one of ours?" "A human ship?" Hana asked. She moved to look over his shoulder. June shook his head. "No, the shape is not human." He pulled up the data from the Galactic Registry. A picture of the ship appeared on the screen. It was long and sharp. It looked like a claw or a knife. It was a dark, metallic gray. The name of the ship came up on the screen. Talons of Glory, and below that the species Xanthi. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Xanthi. They were a strong, proud species. They looked like large reptiles. They had scales and sharp teeth. They had built an empire by conquering other species. They believed they were the strongest and most important life form in the galaxy. They thought humans were loud and messy and weak. A voice came over the comms. It was not a human voice. It was a harsh, hissing sound. The words were translated by the computer. "Small human vessel. You have entered a restricted area. Power down your engines. Prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed." The captain of the Starlight Breeze, a man named Park, answered. His voice was shaky. "This is neutral space. We are a civilian cargo ship. We mean no harm." "Your intentions are not important," the Xanthi voice hissed back. "Your presence is a crime. Power down. Now." Captain Park looked at June and Hana. His face was pale. He was a good man, but he was not a fighter. His ship had no weapons. "We have to do what they say," he said. He shut down the ship's engines. A few minutes later, they felt a heavy thud. The whole ship shook. The Xanthi ship had locked onto them. They were cutting through the hull door. June felt a cold fear in his stomach. He looked at Hana. She looked back at him. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she tried to give him a brave look. "It will be okay," she whispered. "They are just checking. They will let us go." The inner door to the control room opened with a loud crash. 3 Xanthi soldiers walked in. They were huge. They were taller than any human. They wore dark armored suits. They held energy rifles that looked powerful and dangerous. Their yellow eyes scanned the room. They looked at the humans like the humans were insects. One of the soldiers stepped forward. He seemed to be the leader. "Which one of you is in command?" he hissed. Captain Park stood up. His hands were raised. "I am the captain. We are a simple cargo ship. Please take what you want. Just let us go." The Xanthi leader did not even look at him. He looked at the other 2 humans. His eyes moved from Hana to June. He was looking for something. The Xanthi had studied humans. They thought they understood them. They knew that human groups had leaders. They had warriors. They had smart people who made weapons. They believed that if you captured the leader, the group would become weak and lost. The soldier looked at Captain Park. He was old and soft. He was not a leader of warriors. He looked at Lihana. She looked strong and defiant. But she was a female. The Xanthi did not believe females were important in military matters. His eyes then fell on Kim June. June was sitting at his desk. He looked small. He was not muscular. He looked scared. He was not making eye contact. To the Xanthi, this looked like weakness, but it was also a sign of a low-status male. In their culture, the strong ones stared back. The weak ones looked away. This human must be the least important one here, the most disposable. He would be the perfect prize. He would show the galaxy that humans were so weak. They would not even fight for their lowest member. The soldier pointed a long, clawed finger at June. This one. He is coming with us, what? No, Hana shouted. She stepped in front of June. Why him? He is just a data analyst. The soldier ignored her. Two of his soldiers walked towards June. June's mind was empty with terror. He could not move. He could not think. He felt strong, cold hands grab his arms. They pulled him out of his chair. He was not strong enough to fight back. Please, Captain Park said. Take me instead. I am the captain. Your offer is meaningless, the leader said. We have chosen. This one will be a message to your species. As they dragged him away, June looked back. He saw Hana's face. She was crying. She was shouting his name, June! The soldiers pulled him out of the control room and into the dark hallway of their own ship. The door closed behind him with a final heavy sound. He was taken to a small, dirty room. It was a cell. The walls were made of a cold gray metal. There was a small bench to sit on. The air smelled strange. It smelled like chemicals and something else. Something like whetstone. The soldiers pushed him inside. The door closed. He was alone. He sat on the bench for a long time. He did not move. He was too scared. He thought about his life. He thought about his small apartment on Earth. He thought about his job. He thought about Hana. He would never see her again. The Xanthi were going to kill him. He was sure of it. After some time, the door opened again. A new Xanthi walked in. This one was different. He did not wear soldier's armor. He wore a long dark robe. He looked older. His scales had more scars. His eyes were a colder, paler yellow. He looked very intelligent and very cruel. I am Supreme Inquisitor Kalar, the Xanthi said. His voice was smoother than the soldiers, but it was still a hiss. You are now a guest of the Xanthi Imperium. You will answer my questions. June just stared. He could not speak. What is your name and function? Kalar asked. I am Kim June, he whispered. I am a data analyst. A data analyst, Kalar repeated. He seemed disappointed. What is your military rank? I have no rank. I am not a soldier. I am a civilian. Kalar made a sound like a sigh. Do not lie to me, human. We have studied you. We know you hide your warriors among your workers. Tell me about your fleet's battle plans. Tell me about your weapons. I don't know anything about that, June said. His voice was a little stronger now. He was telling the truth. I work on supply lists. I look at numbers. I make systems more efficient. Kalar took a step closer. He leaned down. His face was very close to June's. Efficient? What do you mean? June saw a chance. Maybe if he could show he was useful, they would not kill him. Your ship, June said quickly. I saw some of your systems when I was brought in. The way you manage your energy and your supplies, it is not the best. There is a lot of waste. I could help you. I could write a program for your nutrient paste dispenser. I think I could reduce your waste by 7%. For a moment there was silence. Then Kalar made a sound. It was a low, rumbling hiss. It was laughter. It was not a happy sound. It was a sound of pure contempt. The journey back to the unyielding resolve was a blur of noise and movement. The Marine squad moved like a single organism, with June and Hana protected in the middle. They encountered two more groups of Xanthi soldiers. The fights were short and violent. The bright flash of plasma rifles lit up the smoky hallways. The Marines were professionals. They did not stop. They pushed forward. June did not look at the fallen soldiers. He kept his eyes on Hana's back. He focused on putting one foot in front of the other. The sounds of the ship were dying down. The alarms were quieter. His fake coolant leak had been discovered, but the damage was done. The ship was crippled. They reached the boarding shuttle. The pilot had the engines running.
"Get in now!"
Sergeant Park yelled. They piled into the shuttle. The door sealed shut. The pilot immediately lifted off, flying back out through the hole in the dreadnought's hull. The moment they cleared the ship, the pilot pushed the engines to full power. The small shuttle shot away from the massive, wounded warship. On the bridge of the unyielding Resolve, Captain Bow watched the shuttle return. A small part of him relaxed. The rescue was successful. Now came the hard part, getting away. Helm, plot a course out of the neutral zone. Maximum warp as soon as the shuttle is docked, he ordered. The shuttle landed safely in the hangar bay. The moment the docking clamps locked, the unyielding Resolve turned and leaped into warp speed. The stars on the view screen stretched into long lines, and then they were gone. They had left the talons of glory behind, floating powerless and broken. A short time later, the door to the bridge opened. Lee Hanna walked in, followed by Kim June. June looked pale and thin. He was still wearing his dirty civilian clothes. He looked very small on the big military bridge. Captain Bow turned to face them. The crew was quiet, watching. "Kim June," Captain Bow said. "Welcome aboard." June nodded. "Thank you, sir, for coming to get me." "It seems we owe you our thanks as well," Captain Bow said. "My sensor officer tells me the Xanthi ship suffered a complete systems failure at a very convenient time."
"Can you explain that?"
June shifted on his feet. He was not used to so much attention. I found a way into their environmental control network. I made a program. It told the ship it had a bad coolant leak. It made the emergency systems turn on. It closed all the blast doors." A few of the crew members smiled. One of them chuckled. "You created a digital ghost," the sensor officer said, impressed. "You fooled their entire central computer with a fake problem." June shrugged. "It was the only thing I could think of." Hanna looked at him with a new kind of respect. "You fought back with a computer virus." "It wasn't really a virus," June corrected her softly. "It was more of a persuasive piece of data." Captain Bow almost smiled. He looked from June, the unassuming data analyst, to Hanna, the determined logistics coordinator. They had done it. They had proven the Xanthi completely wrong. "The story is already spreading across the galactic network," the communications officer said. "The Xanthi were broadcasting their talk with you, sir. Everyone heard them call us weak. And then everyone saw their ship fall apart right after. The news services are going crazy. The story did spread. It moved from ship to ship, from planet to planet. It was told in trading posts and in government halls. The official story from the Xanthi Imperium was full of rage. They called it an unprovoked attack. They demanded justice, but their words sounded hollow. The galactic community had seen the recording. They had heard Inquisitor Kalar's arrogance. They had seen his mighty dreadnought be defeated not by a bigger warship, but by chaos from within. The story that everyone told was much simpler. The Xanthi had captured a human. They thought he was weak. They thought humanity would not care. They were wrong on both counts. Other species looked at humanity differently now. Before, they saw us as loud, emotional, and aggressive. Now they saw something else. They saw that a human was never just one thing. A human soldier was dangerous. A human scientist was dangerous. But even a quiet human data analyst, when pushed, could become the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. He could turn a ship's own brain against it. They saw the lengths humans would go to for one of their own. It was not a weakness. It was a terrifying strength. It meant that if you harmed one human, you made an enemy of all of them, and you never knew what kind of enemy you were making. A warrior with a gun? Or a quiet man with a code? Weeks later, Kim June and Lee Hanna were back on Earth. They stood on a beach watching the waves roll in. The sand was warm under their feet. The air smelled of salt and sun. They had been given medals. They had given speeches. They were heroes. June hated the attention. Hanna handled it better. Now they were just two people on a beach. "I never got to thank you," June said. His voice was quiet, almost lost in the sound of the waves. "You saved my life." Hanna shook her head. "You saved your own life." "I just brought the ride." She smiled at him. "I always knew you were smart, June, but I didn't know you were that kind of smart." "It was just a trick," he said. "It was a brilliant trick," Hanna said. She looked out at the ocean. "They thought you were nothing. They thought they could throw you away. and you broke their ship without ever throwing a punch." June was quiet for a moment. "When I was in that cell, the only thing I could think about was getting back. Back to you." Hana turned to look at him. She saw the nervousness in his eyes. She saw the courage it took for him to say that. "I thought about you too," she said softly. "I was so afraid I would never see you again." She reached out and took his hand. Her hand was warm. His was steady. They stood there together, holding hands, watching the endless ocean. They were safe. They were home. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about humanity, but for them, the fight was over. A new beginning was just starting. The door to the cell closed with a sound of finality. Kim June was alone again. The words of the Inquisitor echoed in his mind. 20 cycles. He did not know exactly how long a Xanthi cycle was, but it did not sound like much time. The first few hours were the worst. The fear was a physical thing. It was a cold weight in his stomach. It made his hands shake. He sat on the hard metal bench and thought about all the things he would never do. He would never finish the book he was reading. He would never see the ocean on Earth again. He would never get to tell Lee Hana how he felt about her. Thinking about Hana made the fear change. It mixed with anger. A slow, burning anger. She would be fighting for him, he knew it. She was not someone who gave up. She was out there, probably arguing with captains and admirals trying to get someone to listen. She was fighting and he was sitting in a cell waiting to die. That thought was unacceptable. He was not a soldier. He could not punch his way through the metal door. He could not outfight the guards. But he was not helpless. He had his mind. The Xanthi thought that was worthless. They thought fixing a food machine was a joke. That was their mistake. He stood up and started to pace. The cell was small, only 3 steps in each direction. He forced himself to breathe slowly. He needed to observe. He needed to find a pattern. He looked at everything. The walls were smooth. There were no visible seams or panels. The door was solid. There was a small slot at the bottom where a tray of food could be pushed through. There was a small grate in the floor for drainage. In one corner there was a pipe. It was about as wide as his wrist. It was made of a dull gray metal. It had a few bolts holding it to the wall. He listened. The ship had a constant low hum. It was the sound of the engines and the life support systems. Every so often he would hear a different sound. A clang of metal. A hiss of steam. The heavy footsteps of a guard walking past his door. He paid attention to the footsteps. They came at regular times. He counted the seconds between patrols. It was almost exactly 600 seconds. 10 minutes. The guard would walk by, his boots making a heavy sound on the metal floor. He would not stop. He would not look in. He was just checking that the door was still closed. June looked at the pipe again. An idea began to form in his mind. It was a desperate idea. It was probably a stupid idea, but it was better than no idea. The food slot opened. A tray of thick gray paste was pushed into the cell. The slot closed. June did not care about the food. He cared about the tray. It was made of a thin, flexible metal. He picked it up. He bent it back and forth. It was strong, but if he worked at it, he could break a piece off. He sat on the floor with his back to the door, hiding what he was doing. He used the edge of the bench to bend the tray. He focused on one corner. He bent it again and again. After several minutes, the metal became weak. With a final sharp twist, a long, narrow piece broke off. It was as long as his hand and had a sharp, jagged point. He now had a tool. He waited for the next guard patrol. He heard the footsteps. They came and then they faded away. He had 10 minutes, he went to the pipe. He pushed the sharp end of his metal tool into the seam where one of the bolts was. He pushed hard. Nothing happened. He tried again, wiggling it. He felt a tiny movement. He kept working, putting all his strength into it. His hands hurt. After a few minutes, he felt the bolt turn. Just a little. It was slow, hard work. He had to stop every 10 minutes when the guard walked by. He would hide the metal shard and sit on the bench, pretending to be doing nothing. His heart pounded each time the footsteps approached. It took him a long time. He did not know how many cycles had passed. He was sweating. His fingers were raw. But he managed to loosen 2 of the bolts enough that he could turn them with his fingers. The pipe became a little loose. He could move it a small amount away from the wall. Behind the pipe, he saw it. A small recessed panel. It was covered with a grill. Behind the grill, he could see a tangle of wires and a few data ports. It was an access point for the ship's low-level systems, probably for environmental controls or internal communications. This was it. This was his chance. He was not going to try to send a message. The Xanthi would detect an outgoing signal instantly. He was not going to try to open the door. That control would be on a secure system. He was going to do what he did best. He was going to look for a problem in the system, and he was going to make it worse. He used his metal tool to pry off the grill. It came away with a soft pop. Now he had access to the wires and the ports. He looked at the data ports. They were a standard galactic design. He could work with that. He took the data tracer from his pocket. He had stuck it to the pipe, but he had taken it back after planting it. He needed it now. He carefully broke it open. Inside was a small battery and a tiny circuit board. He pulled out 2 thin wires from the circuit board. This was the most dangerous part. If he connected the wrong wires, he could electrocute himself. Or he could set off an alarm. He took a deep breath. He thought about the patterns. He thought about how systems were built. The Xanthi were warriors. They would have strong shields and powerful weapons, but would they care about the system that controlled the air temperature? Or the lights in the hallways? Probably not. Those systems would be simple. They would be connected to the main computer, but they would have basic, old programming. He found 2 wires that looked like they carried data. He carefully touched the wires from his tracer to them. He did not connect them. He just tapped them, sending a tiny, quick burst of power. It was like knocking on a door to see if anyone was home. He watched the lights in his cell. They flickered, just for a split second. Good. He was in the right place. Now he had to write his program, but he had no keyboard. He had no screen. He had to do it by hand. He would use the battery from his tracer to send pulses of electricity. He would use these pulses to write code directly into the ship's system. It was like trying to write a novel by tapping out Morse code on a single button. He closed his eyes. In his mind, he built the code. He needed a lie. A big, believable lie. He could not just turn off the lights. That would be noticed and fixed quickly. He needed to make the ship think it was dying. He decided to target the coolant system for the life support. If a ship had a coolant leak, it would trigger a series of automatic emergency protocols. It would try to contain the leak. It would shut down non-essential systems to save power. It would close blast doors to isolate the problem. It would set off alarms all over the ship. It would cause chaos. He began his work. He touched the wires, sending short and long pulses of electricity. Each pulse represented a 1 or a 0 in the binary language of computers. He was building a small, nasty piece of code. A logic bomb. It would sit quietly in the environmental system. Then when he triggered it, it would send a fake sensor reading to the main computer. It would tell the computer that a primary coolant pipe had ruptured in Section 7, which was near the main weapons array. He worked for a long time. His concentration was total. He did not hear the footsteps. He did not feel the pain in his fingers. He was in a world of numbers and logic. He was building a trap made of ideas. Finally, it was done. The code was written and hidden inside the system. It was waiting for his signal. He heard the heavy footsteps of the guard. They were closer than he expected. He had lost track of time. He quickly pulled the wires away. He pushed the grill back over the panel. He pushed the pipe back into place. He hid the metal shard and the broken tracer under the bench. He sat down just as the guard walked by. The footsteps paused outside his door. June held his breath. Had the guard heard something? A small red light on the door blinked. June realized the guard was looking through a hidden camera. June tried to look defeated. He slumped his shoulders and stared at the floor. After a moment that felt like an hour, the footsteps started again and faded away. June let out a long, slow breath. He was safe for now. His plan was ready. It was a desperate plan. It required the human fleet to come. It required them to attack at the right time. It required his little program to work. He had no way of knowing if any of that would happen. But he had done what he could. He had used his mind to fight back. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a saboteur. He sat in the silence of his cell and waited for his chance. The bridge of the unyielding resolve was a place of quiet tension. The lights were low. Crew members sat at their stations, their faces lit by the soft glow of their screens. They spoke in low voices. The only loud sound was the steady hum of the ship's engines. Captain Bow stood in the center of the room. He looked at the main view screen. It showed a field of stars. In the middle of that field was a small, sharp shape. It was the Xanthi dreadnought, the Talons of Glory. It was huge. It made the unyielding resolve look small. Lihana stood near the back of the bridge. She was wearing a borrowed crew uniform. It was a little too big for her. She felt out of place among all these soldiers, but she kept her eyes on the screen. Somewhere inside that giant ship was June. "Status," Captain Bo said. His voice was calm. A woman at the sensor station answered. "The target is holding position. Their shields are at full power. They have not detected us yet. We are just outside their long-range sensor sweep." "Good," Captain Bo said. "Open a channel. Hail them." The communications officer worked his console. "Channel open, sir." Captain Bo stood up straight. "Xanthi vessel Talons of Glory. This is Captain Bo of the Earth Defense Force cruiser Unyielding Resolve. You have taken one of our citizens, Kim June. Release him unharmed and you may depart. This is your only warning." There was a moment of silence. Then the main view screen changed. It showed the face of Supreme Inquisitor Kalar. His reptilian eyes narrowed when he saw Captain Bo. "Human," Kalar hissed. "You are foolish to come here. You risk a war for this one pitiful creature?" He laughed, a dry, scraping sound. "We are broadcasting this to our entire network. Let the galaxy see your sentimentality. Let them see your weakness." On the Talons of Glory, Kalar had ordered the communication broadcast to every screen on the ship. He wanted his crew to see the humiliation of the humans. He wanted June to hear it in his cell. In his small, dark room, June heard the Inquisitor's voice come from a hidden speaker. His heart leaped. They had come. The humans had actually come for him. He heard Captain Bo's voice, strong and clear. He felt a surge of hope. It was time. He moved quickly. He pulled the metal shard from its hiding place. He went to the pipe and pried the grill off again. He connected the 2 wires from his broken tracer to the data port. He did not need to write any more code. He just needed to send the signal to activate it. One simple electrical pulse. He touched the wires together. On the bridge of the Talons of Glory, Kalar was enjoying himself. "Your threat is empty, human. You will not fire. You are too afraid of a war, and soon you will watch as we execute your citizen. It will be a valuable lesson for you." Suddenly a loud, blaring alarm cut through the bridge. A red light began to flash on the main console. Kalar turned, his head snapping around. "What is that? Report!" A Xanthi officer looked at his screen, his scales twitching in confusion. "Inquisitor, we have a critical alert. A catastrophic coolant leak in Section 7. The system reports a primary pipe has ruptured. Life support and primary weapons are in danger of overheating." "Impossible!" Kalar shouted. "Run a diagnostic." On the Unyielding Resolve, Captain Bo saw the change on the enemy ship. Flashing red lights were visible through its viewports. "Sir," the sensor officer said, her voice surprised, "I'm reading a massive power fluctuation on the dreadnought. Their non-essential systems are shutting down. Their shield power is dropping." Hana took a step forward. "That's him. That's June." Captain Bo did not hesitate. "All weapons target their engine nacelles. We want to disable them, not destroy them. Fire!" The Unyielding Resolve unleashed its weapons. Bright bolts of plasma shot across space. They slammed into the side of the Xanthi ship. Without its full shields, the dreadnought's armor was vulnerable. There was a series of explosions along its hull. The ship shuddered violently. Chaos erupted on the Talons of Glory. The impact of the plasma bolts threw crew members to the floor. Lights flickered. The blaring alarm for the coolant leak was joined by the scream of hull breach warnings. "Shields are down," an officer yelled. "We have lost primary power to engines. We are dead in space." Kalar grabbed the edge of his chair to steady himself. His mind was racing. A coolant leak and a human attack at the same time? It could not be a coincidence. Rage filled him. The human. The weak, pathetic human. He had done this. "Find the human," Kalar screamed. "I want him brought to the bridge now. I will kill him myself." But his orders were lost in the chaos. The ship's automatic emergency protocols had taken over. Giant blast doors slammed shut all through the ship, sealing off sections to contain the fake leak. This trapped crew members in hallways and cut off teams from their posts. The internal comms system was jammed with panic and conflicting reports. Captain Bo saw that the enemy ship was crippled and confused. "Ceasefire. Ready the boarding parties. Focus on the forward sections. Our objective is search and rescue. Find Kim June. Hana moved to his side. Captain, I need to go with them. I know, June. I can find him. Captain Bo looked at her. He saw the determination in her eyes. He knew she was right. He also knew it was incredibly dangerous. All right, he said, but you will stay with Sergeant Park's team. You will do exactly what he says. Is that clear? Hana nodded. Yes, sir. Thank you. She turned and ran towards the launch bay where the Marine squad was preparing to board. The boarding shuttle was small, fast, and armored. It carried 10 Marines in heavy combat gear and 1 civilian. Hana sat between them, her heart pounding. She held a small data pad that showed the layout of a Xanthi dreadnought. It was an old design, but it was mostly accurate. The Marine sergeant, a tough-looking man named Park, spoke to her. Stay behind me. Do not touch anything. If we tell you to get down, you get down. Understood? Understood, Hana said. The shuttle pilot flew skillfully towards the wounded dreadnought. They headed for a gaping hole torn by the unyielding Resolve's weapons. The pilot maneuvered the shuttle right into the opening, landing with a hard clang inside a dark, smoky hallway. Go, 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 Sergeant Park yelled. The Marines poured out of the shuttle, their weapons raised. Hana followed them. The inside of the Xanthi ship was a nightmare. Red emergency lights flashed, creating long, dancing shadows. Wires hung from the ceiling. There was smoke in the air. They could hear the distant sounds of yelling and explosions. The Marines moved quickly and quietly. They checked corners and opened doors. They encountered a few Xanthi soldiers, but the enemy was disorganized and confused. The Marines easily disabled them. Hana looked at her datapad. The holding cells should be on this deck. Down this corridor and to the left. Sergeant Park led the way. They moved down a wide hallway. The blast doors were sealed, but the Marine tech expert used a plasma cutter to burn through the locking mechanism. They pushed the heavy door open. They found themselves in a quieter section of the ship. The alarms were more distant here. The hallway was lined with doors. Cell doors, this is it, Hana said. She looked at the numbers on the doors. She did not know which one was June's. We have to check them all. The Marines started opening the doors. The first few were empty. Then they opened one and found a terrified-looking alien from a species Hana did not recognize. The Marine gestured for it to stay quiet and move on. Hana ran to the next door. June, she shouted. Kim June! Are you in there? Inside his cell, June heard the sounds of battle. He heard the explosions. He heard the alarms he had created. Then he heard a new sound. The sound of energy weapons firing. Human plasma rifles. Then he heard the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. His name, called by Lee Hana. He jumped to his feet. Hana, I'm here! He shouted, pounding on the door. He heard running footsteps. Then the locking mechanism on his door glowed red and melted. The door was pushed open. Standing in the hallway, surrounded by armed Marines, was Lee Hana. She was still wearing the too big uniform. Her face was smudged with smoke. She looked like a warrior. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Hana ran forward and hugged him tightly. You're alive, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. June hugged her back. He felt a relief so powerful it made him dizzy. You found me, he said. Sergeant Park interrupted. We need to move, now. This whole ship could blow. Hana let go of June. Can you walk? June nodded. He was weak and tired, but he could walk. As he stepped out of the cell, he pointed to the open access panel by the pipe. I need to disconnect my device. One of the Marines looked at the wires. What did you do? I gave them a problem to worry about, June said simply. He reached in, pulled the wires loose, and put the broken pieces of his tracer back in his pocket. Then, surrounded by the Marines, Kim June and Lee Hana started their journey home. You offer to fix our food machine? Kalar said. He was laughing at him. You are even weaker than I thought. You are not a leader. You are not a warrior. You are nothing. You are less than nothing. Kalar straightened up. He looked down at June with disgust. You will be a perfect example. We will broadcast your execution to the entire galaxy. We will show them what happens to humans who cross the Xanthi, and we will show your people that they are too weak to save even their most worthless member. He turned and walked to the door. You have 20 cycles to live. Enjoy them. The door closed again. June was alone in the silence. The fear was still there. It was a cold stone in his chest. But now there was something else. A small hot spark of anger. They thought he was worthless. They thought he was nothing. They were going to use his death to shame all of humanity. He stood up. His legs felt weak. He walked around the small cell. He had to do something. He could not just sit and wait to die. He reached into his pocket. He always carried a few small tools. A multi-tool, a small light, and a data tracer. The tracer was a small, flat disk. He used it to find lost data pads at work. If he lost one, he could activate the tracer and it would make the data pad beep. It was not a weapon. It was just a simple tool. He looked around the cell. There was a small, dirty pipe in one corner. It probably carried water. He walked over to it. He pretended to be looking at the wall. He made his movements slow and sad. With a quick, careful motion, he stuck the data tracer to the bottom of the pipe. It was magnetic. It stuck there, hidden in the shadows. It was a very small thing. It was a tiny flicker of hope in the darkness. He did not know if it would work. He did not know if anyone was looking for him. But it was all he could do. He sat back down on the bench. He was still scared. But he was not just waiting to die anymore. He was waiting for a chance. Any chance at all. The silence on the starlight breeze was heavy and loud. It was the kind of silence that pressed on your ears. The Xanthi ship, the Talons of Glory, was gone. It had vanished into warp speed, taking Kim June with it. The only evidence it had ever been there was the broken door to the airlock. A cold draft came from the opening, a reminder of the violation. Lee Hanna stood in the middle of the control room. She was not moving. Her hands were clenched into tight fists at her sides. She could still see the look on June's face as they dragged him away. It was not a look of bravery. It was pure, simple fear. He was just a quiet man who liked numbers. He had never hurt anyone. Captain Park was talking fast into the comms. His voice was high and shaky. Yes, a Xanthi warship. The Talons of Glory. They took one of my crew. Kim June, you have to send help. You have to find them. The person on the other end was from the Earth Defense Force. His voice was calm and slow. It was the voice of a man who heard bad news every day. Captain Park, we are logging your report. The location is deep in the neutral zone. The political situation is delicate. We cannot send a warship into that area without approval from the Galactic Council. That process could take weeks. Weeks? Captain Park shouted. They are going to kill him. They said they would make an example of him. I understand your distress, the voice said without any real feeling. But an unauthorized military action could start a war with the Xanthi Imperium. The risk is too great. We advise you to proceed to the nearest starbase and file a full report. We will do what we can through diplomatic channels. The comms link went quiet. Captain Park put his head in his hands. He was a good man, but he was not a hero. He followed the rules. The rules said there was nothing he could do. Hanna finally moved. She turned and looked at the captain. Her eyes were dry now. They were hard and focused. They are not going to do anything, she said. Her voice was flat. They have procedures, Hanna, the captain said, not looking up. They have to follow the rules. We could start a war. June is not a procedure. He is a person, Hanna said. She walked to her own station and sat down. Her fingers started moving across the screen. They took him because they thought he was weak. They thought we would not care. They thought we would not fight for him. What are you doing? The captain asked. I am not going to let them be right, Hanna said. She was not talking to the captain anymore. She was talking to herself. She pulled up June's personnel file. It was a boring file. It was full of performance reviews and skill assessments. He was excellent at data synthesis and system optimization. He had no military training. His hobbies were listed as logic puzzles and historical data pattern analysis. He was, on paper, the least dangerous human the Xanthi could have taken. But Hanna knew something else about June. He was careful. He was paranoid about losing things. He always had a small data tracer with him. He used it to find his data pad when he misplaced it, which was often. He called it his personal locator beacon. If June had that tracer on him and if it was still active, it would be sending out a tiny, quiet signal. A signal no one would notice unless they were specifically listening for it. The ship's computer was not powerful enough to scan for a signal across light years, but it could send a request to the EDF's main tracking network. It was a long shot. A very, very long shot. She typed the command. She entered June's name and his tracer's identification code. She set the search parameters to maximum range and ignore all signal degradation. The screen showed a spinning icon. It was searching. Minutes passed. The captain started talking about setting a course for the starbase. He was giving up. Then the screen beeped. A single line of text appeared. Signal acquired. Low confidence. Source: Xanthi Dreadnought class vessel. Registry: Talons of Glory. Approximate location: Grid 742 Theta. Hana's heart jumped. She found him. It was a weak signal, but it was there. June was alive, and she knew where he was. She stood up so fast her chair rolled back and hit the wall. "Captain, I have his location." Captain Park looked at the screen. He saw the words Xanthi Dreadnought. His face went pale again. A dreadnought? Hana, that is one of their biggest warships. It is a fortress. There is nothing we can do. Even if the EDF sent a ship, it would need to be a big one to fight that. I am not asking for a ship to fight it, Hana said. She was already gathering her things. I am asking for a ship to get him back. And how do you propose we do that? The captain asked, his voice tired. I don't know, Hana said honestly, but I am going to find someone who does. I am not leaving him there. She transferred the location data to a small data chip. She walked to the damaged airlock. The ship had a small, fast shuttle for short trips. It was called the Swift Return. Where are you going? Captain Park asked, his voice rising in panic. The nearest EDF outpost is only a few hours away in the shuttle, Hana said, stepping into the small craft. I am going to show them this data. I am going to make them listen. You can't just take the shuttle. This is insubordination. Hana turned and looked at him. For the first time, she was not the friendly logistics coordinator. She looked like a different person. Then court-martial me when I get back. With June, she closed the shuttle door. Captain Park stood and watched as the Swift Return detached from the freighter and flew away into the blackness of space. The EDF outpost Zulu was a busy place. It was a large space station that orbited a dead moon. Ships of all sizes came and went. It was a place for refueling and repairs. It was also a command post for the local sector. Hana landed her shuttle in a busy hangar bay. She was just a civilian. No one paid any attention to her. She walked quickly through the wide corridors. She needed to find someone in charge, someone who would care. She went to the main command center. A young officer at the front desk stopped her. Can I help you, ma'am? This is a restricted area. I need to see the commanding officer, Hana said. It is urgent. It is about a Xanthi kidnapping. The officer sighed. He had heard many urgent stories. You need to file a report with the Civilian Affairs Office. Deck 12. This cannot wait for a report, Hana said, her voice tight. They have one of our people. I know exactly where he is. They are going to execute him in 20 cycles. The officer was about to tell her to leave when a door opened behind him. A man walked out. He was not tall, but he had a strong presence. He wore the uniform of an EDF captain. His face was serious. He had lines around his eyes that spoke of long years and hard decisions. His name was Captain Bow. What is the disturbance, Ensign? Captain Bow asked. His voice was low and calm, but it demanded attention.